Alright, so today I'm going to be talking about the French Oaks. The Prix de Diane ran at Chantilly on Sunday. Now, we saw the French Derby a few weeks ago and it was a much more open race. Obviously, Constitution River won and Ballydoyle cleaned up. But, this might be different. Although it probably won't be because Diamond Necklace is $1.70, $1.80. So, she's very highly favoured to win this race. But I'll talk about some of these horses because there are a few interesting angles. I think we've seen in the past this race won by the likes of Jazora, Nashwa. Obviously, Jazora's career's gone off a bit of a cliff since she's gone to America. Won that Fillies and Mares turf at the Breeders' Cup and then hasn't really done anything since. Now I think the year before was Sparkling Plenty. I think. Obviously, she got bought by, I think, Qatar Racing or something, Al Shakab Racing for like 10 million or something. I don't know, it was like a really stupid headline at the time. But yeah, we've seen some really good horses. I think I said Nashwa before, she went on to do some really good stuff in her career. So yeah, we'll start off with Evolutionist, obviously, owned by Yulong, who are a really global ownership group. Trained by Carl Burke, who really, gets the best out of these 3-year-olds, especially the fillies, I think. And she was last seen running second in the 1,000 guineas behind True Love, who, she went to the Irish one and didn't do as well. But yeah, I think this is the strongest form going into the race by a bit. I think the British Guineas in general is one of the strongest form references for 3-year-olds. Going to Ascot, going into the French Oaks, some other races later in the season. But yeah, I think Evolutionist is really nice chestnut filly. Won her first start this prep in France. I think it was in a Group 3 race. So, she hasn't really done a great deal wrong so far. And now she comes to the French Oaks. This is her first time up at 2,000 metres. So, there is a query about the distance, but I think her class should get her through here. I think she'll run a big race. I don't think she can win, but I think she could probably run second or third. I think that's a pretty good expectation for her. I think she's very good, Evolutionist. Now, Moments of Joy, obviously owned by Ballydoyle, American-bred horse. As a 2-year-old, I really liked her. I thought she was going to be, one of the real top seeds. As a 3-year-old, she had some really promising runs. But, she's just fallen a bit flat so far this year. Now, as you can see, Wayne Lawton's booked, who, will be told to go forward, I'd imagine. It's what they do in these classics. They want a truly run race for their favourite, usually to be the best horse, if that makes sense. So I think Moments of Joy will go forward and go at a pretty solid tempo to set the race up for her counterpart in Diamond Necklace. Now Habibi is one of these. She's one of these few of these horses that they're coming out of these listed sort of Group 3 2,000 metre races. That are used as prep runs for the Oaks. Now, I don't think she's going to be good enough, Habibi. I just think there's better horses here, more classier animals, and that have come out of races like the French 1,000 guineas, the British 1,000 guineas, that sort of thing. So I think Habibi won't be good enough. Same with Pink Panthera. But of these horses, I think Evita, could be good enough. I think she's, pretty useful. Obviously, as Christophe Soumillon booked, who is, a massive bonus. And I think, she might, she'll get the distance. She might just keep plugging away, especially if it's a really heavy track. She might outstay a lot of these. So, I think Evita might be, if you're into doing like exotics and stuff, I think Evita might be, one to throw in there. Now, talking about some of these others, there's a lot of British horses that have come over. Now, Esna, obviously, she won that listed race last start. But Ryan Moore won that race, I think. She didn't really win it. Ryan Moore got her home. 9 times out of 10, she loses that race to Sacred Ground, I think. And this is coming from a salty punter who was on Sacred Ground. But Ryan Moore just proved why he's one of the best in the world and really got Esna home that day. So she's won at listed level over 2,000 metres. And now she'll go to a French Oaks. I think it might be a bridge too far, but. Against James Doyle, who is a good jockey in his own. I think it's pretty daring campaigning by Brian Mann. But we've seen him do this before with the likes of JRB, Rasha Bar, who went to a Breeders' Cup turf last year, I believe. So He's one of these trainers that, campaigns their horse quite daringly and doesn't really take any second chances. So, I think Essena's interesting, probably one for the exotics, but I don't think she's good enough to win a French Oaks, not by a long shot, to be honest. Innes Moore's similar sort of horse, obviously gets a Shane Murphy booked. She did run in the 1,000 Guineas, although didn't run too well, and then won a listed race last start at Goodwood with Safi Osborne on board. Now, obviously, David Manoussier, who, trains in England, but he's French. He targets some of these French races, so I kind of get it. I think won't be good enough in a small, to be honest. But she should, she might surprise and run into a place. I'm not too sure. But yeah, I think her and Esna are very similar horses. I think sort of that listed sort of, a few tiers below Group 1 level. And then Diamond Necklace. Where do I start with her? Obviously, Coolmore owned, Aidan O'Brien, Ryan Moore. It ticks every single box, this horse, for a race. There's a reason she's like $1.80 for this. I think this has been the target since her 2-year-old days. I was at the track that day at Longchamp when she won. I think it's the pre-Marcel Boissac, that Group 1. And yeah, she's a very nice filly. Obviously won that day with Christophe Soumillon. And then returns first up in the French 1,000 Guineas and wins on a really heavy track. She's done nothing wrong so far. She's absolutely bred for a French Oaks as well. She's by St Mark's Basilica. I don't know what else to say about it. She's just, a budding superstar, and I think she's going to win here. And then they're going to target races like the Nassau at Goodwood. I'm not too sure if they'll go up to 1.5 miles with her, but I think they'll go for like a Nassau. And, we might even see her in like an Opera at Longchamp because, by this stage she will have had a really good track record in France. So she could run an Opera, maybe a Champion Stakes at the end of the year. But she's an absolute superstar, Diamond Necklace, and I think she's going to win this race. It'll be a no-bet race for me, this, because Diamond Necklace is too short. I don't like betting horses below $2, but I think Diamond Necklace just wins here. She's very good. Now, I'll talk about these last three. Obviously, none of them are as glowing as Diamond Necklace, but Felicitas is quite nice. She was last seen running second in the Musidora Stakes at York behind Legacy Link, so that race has aged very well. That form does look quite good now. And we know she's going to get the trip as well. Like, a lot of these horses you're kind of guessing, like even the favourite Diamond Necklace, she hasn't run 2,000 metres, but she's bred to. But yeah, Felicitas is pretty interesting. It's interesting that they go here rather than the Epsom Derby, the Epsom Oaks rather. Obviously, it's Kieran Schumacher on board who rides for this ownership group quite a lot, I believe. He seems to always be riding in these colours. But yeah, Felicitas, if you're into doing exotics, I think she could be an interesting one. Same with Green Spirit. She comes from that French Guineas form. She finished a surging third in that French Guineas on that heavy track, and it was a pretty solid run, to be fair. So yeah, for this ownership group, I forget what they're called, but they always have some of the best runners in France. So yeah, it'll probably run a good race, Green Spirit, but I think has a lot to find on Diamond Necklace, in my opinion. And then the last horse in the race is Lilt. Obviously, William Haggis, who trained second place in the Derby the other week with Maltese Cross. So, he can identify a good 3-year-old. And he obviously thinks Lilt has, something about her because she's going from a listed mile race up to 2,000 metres in a French Oaks, French Classic, a Group 1. It's a massive step up in class. But obviously, Tom Marquand's an excellent jockey, probably a bit underrated, I'd argue. And she might surprise. She might run a good race, but I also think some of these are just a lot better. And if you're comparing Diamond Necklace and Lilt, it's pretty obvious. Like, one's a dual Group 1 winner, the other one's had 2 starts and broken through at listed levels. So I think Diamond Necklace wins this. But if I was going to predict the second and third places, I'd probably go Evolutionist and Evita, I think. Good to have a French horse in there. We've seen French horses, they've won this race the last 2 years, so it makes sense to look at the French horses more, but I think this is a really, really strong contingent of British horses running in the race this year, so it should be interesting to see how it turns out. And then obviously we've got Royal Ascot the week after, so this weekend rolling into Tuesday, obviously the first day of Royal Ascot with 3 Group 1s. I think it's the Queen Anne, the St James's Palace, and the King Charles Stakes. So, it's just a legendary first day of racing for Royal Ascot. And then we got this race to look forward to as well. So, if you like this sort of content, just like and subscribe, follow me on Twitter, and I'll see you later.